Hi, welcome. A very good afternoon to everyone who is joining in for this month's TMS23 Talk Series. Today's topic will be on fake news detective. Can we game our way out of fake news? My name's Ching Yi, and today we have Professor Edson, who is the associate professor from Nanyang Technological University in Singapore, and he'll explain about today's topic. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you so much, Chingy. Good afternoon. Thanks for spending your afternoon with us. Today, I'll be sharing one project that we've been doing at the Center for Information Integrity and the Internet at Nanyang Technological University, which is a computer game called Fake News Detective. So I'll walk you through what made us come up with this game. And also, I'll give you a chance to try the game, and hopefully, you can give us feedback. It's still a work in progress. We're trying to improve it, so any inputs that you can give us will be very helpful as we continue to improve the game and make it more fun for our players. So we were interested in our project at NTU. We were looking at the problem of fake news in Singapore. So we've done a lot interview, survey, and also run experiments across different groups of the population. And one thing that struck me I thought was interesting was young people. So young people, we have this stereotype that it's only usually the elderly who are prone to believing and sharing fake news. But in our research, we found out that this is not always true. That young people are also susceptible to fake news, but for different reasons. For example, in our focus groups, we've found, even in our surveys, we've found that some young people actually share fake news that they know is fake. And that's because it's funny, it's outrageous, it's going to humor their friends. Others don't have the motivation to verify or check before sharing because they think that because of their tech skills, and of course, young people are tech savvy, they think that they are not susceptible to fake news. And because of that high level of confidence, sometimes it actually makes them prone to sharing something that is not verified. And so we thought, what can we do with this information that we have from our research? And what we thought would be to try to do something that can actually help and contribute to addressing this issue among a particular demographic. So we thought of creating an intervention, and we were guided by this theoretical framework of inoculation. So borrowed from the medical sciences, this concept of inoculation was adopted into communication research. And the idea is that when we expose people to a weak version of a persuasive message, then people would start, those who are exposed to that inoculation message would start to develop antibodies to the persuasion. And that would hopefully make them more resistant to the actual persuasion when the more messages would come to them. So computer games, serious games, have been conceptualized as a form of inoculation because with games, you can expose people to different messages. And hopefully, by exposing them to that particular message, when they encounter a similar message in real life, they would already have built some resistance. And so we thought maybe we can create a game where we may be exposing people to some questionable claims, but also exposing them to efforts to fact check these claims. And with that, with those activities in the game, then they would hopefully build resistance when they encounter questionable messages, unverified claims in real life outside of our game. So that's the theoretical framework that guided the creation of Fake News Detective. So Fake News Detective is a computer game that we developed at our research center. We worked with three students from our computer science school at NTU. So we brainstorm, we talk about how could we make it fun, but also definitely educational for our players. We were very focused on a specific demographic. We wanted a game that would be able to target high school, secondary school students in Singapore. And so we also thought about what would be fun activities for them to do. But at the same time, when they're doing their activities, how can we make them aware of how fake news is created, what are the motivations for creating fake news, what are examples of fake news that have gone viral in Singapore. How can we direct them to fact checking resources, for example, and also like what tips can we give them so that they would be more prepared to encounter these kinds of messages. At one point, we also worked with the National Library Board in Singapore to again make the game more public, and we've also incorporated some of the elements from the National Library Board's own initiatives against fake news. We incorporated some of those in our game, as you will see later when we try the game. So before rolling out the game, this was a very long process from game development. We didn't really go to the public right away. We wanted to be sure that before we make the game publicly accessible, that we wanted to be sure that it's a helpful game. And so we subjected the game to several rounds of pre-testing, but also we tried to measure, test whether the game is effective at achieving certain outcomes. So we ran two online experiments to test how effective the game is. The first study, we involved college students. So we hypothesized that those college students who would play our game will increase their perception of fake news as a threat, also increase their confidence in their ability to detect fake news, also increase their skepticism about the kinds of information they get online, and that hopefully they would also report higher level of caution, of being careful when they are encountering information online. And we believe that those who play our game will score higher on these outcomes than people who don't play our game. And second, we also hypothesize and hope that those who play our game will then, after playing the game, score higher in their ability to detect fake news if we subject them to, say, a fake news detection quiz. So that was the first study. What we did was we invited college students, divided them into two groups. One group, the treatment group, we have 51 students assigned to that group. They were assigned to that group to play the game. And then, so what the procedure was, we recruited them. They had to answer an online questionnaire to look at certain indicators. For example, how confident they are about their skills, how concerned they are about the problem of fake news, whether they feel like they've been fooled by fake news in the past. And then after that, after completing the questionnaire, we asked them to play the game. And then they played the game. And then after that, the following day, we asked them to fill out another survey to, again, rate certain indicators. That way, we were able to compare certain indicators from before and after playing the game. Then the other group, about at least 33 students, we assigned them into the control group. They did completed both questionnaires, but they did not play the game. So basically, we just want to see whether any changes in the responses from time 1 to time 2 were just due to maybe learning about the questions in the beginning or just due to time. So basically, it's the control group. Some of the indicators that we measured, we wanted to look at threat recognition, whether how vulnerable they perceive themselves to be to this threat of fake news. There are also items that measured how confident they are in their ability to detect fake news. We also measured skepticism, how much they trust or don't trust the information that they find online. And then we also measured caution, whether how careful they are when they're encountering information being passed around online. And finally, we also subjected them to a fake news detection quiz. One part of the quiz exposed participants to fake news items that are actually in the game. So both fake news and real news, and we wanted to measure how able they are to detect whether this is fake or real. The second part of the quiz involved items that were not in the game, meaning we also were curious whether after playing the game, if they encounter new fake news items, whether they would have already built some level of resistance after playing the game. So that's the first study. And then after the first study, we also tried to test the game among younger participants, which is actually the main target audience of our game. So we work with the National Library Board, but also some of our partners to recruit secondary school students and junior college students to try and play our game. I think we have around 30 plus students around this age. And similar to the first study, we predicted that those who, after playing our game, they will increase their threat perception, their level of confidence, their skepticism, and their caution. But also, with this second study, we were able to compare whether the game actually functions differently between two different groups that are different in terms of age. Younger participants versus college age participants. And finally, we also were interested to what extent do these outcomes that we were interested in, like that perception, confidence, skepticism, and caution, how do these affect one's ability to detect fake news? So those were our hypotheses, and these are what we found when we analyzed the game. We found that our game was quite effective in improving threat recognition, skepticism, and caution. So those who played our game from time one to time two, the two questionnaires that they filled out, they recorded higher perception that they've been fooled in the past. So basically increasing their perception of their own vulnerability. They also reported higher skepticism, that not everything you see online can be trusted. And then they also reported higher level of caution, that after playing the game, they reported that they will be more careful when they are encountering information online. One thing that was interesting is that our game did not improve confidence. So the level of confidence increased from time one to time two, regardless of whether they played the game or they did not play the game, which I thought was interesting. Some studies in other countries that also tested serious games as an intervention against fake news. Some of those found that confidence can be increased with a serious game. But I think there's something I've been thinking about, and something I want to know what you're thinking about also, is that um, confidence is not good all the time. In our studies at NQ, we also found that there are some people who report high level of confidence about their ability when it comes to detecting fake news. But when we subject them to actual detection of fake news, the confidence does not match the actual ability. And that can be a dangerous combination when you have people who think they are able, who are confident about their skills in their ability to detect fake news, but it's actually not matched by actual ability. So you have this false sense of confidence. And so I think, the game not being able to increase confidence not can actually be something good. Maybe what we want to see in the future is the game would actually try to reduce that level of confidence. Instead, we want that lower level of confidence to translate in higher level of caution. One thing that was I thought was quite good is that we also found that those who played our game are displayed better ability at detecting fake news after playing the game compared to those who did not play our game. We did not find any significant differences between college age players and our secondary and JC student players. So looks like across that age range, there were no significant differences. And finally, we found that of all the outcomes we've tested, confidence and caution were positively related with fake news detection. Meaning those who have higher level of confidence and who have higher level of caution, they also tend to perform better when we subject them to a fake news quiz. These are just some examples, just graphs, illustrating what I've summarized for you. So, for example, here you can see that when we ask them to report their level of agreement that they've believed in posts that turned out to be fake, you can see that this orange line is the control group. They did not play the game. It's almost flat. But if you look at the blue line, college students, also the green line, the teens, both of them, those who played their game, increased their level of agreement with this statement. Similarly, when we talk about skepticism, we ask them to report their level of agreement that information they find online is trustworthy. You see that the orange line shows a slight increase. Although I remember this is not statistically different, but if you look at the green line and the blue line, these are the players who played the game. You see a decrease from the pre-test questionnaire to the post-test questionnaire in terms of their level of agreement that information you find online is trustworthy. And this is just a graph of one of the quizzes that we administered to them. This is a misinformation test. These are referred to fake news items that were included in the game. So you see that those who did not play the game, the orange bar is also quite flat. There was no change from before and after. But those who played our game, the blue line for college students, the green line for our teens, they also decreased. Their level of agreement that these items are true. That's why you're seeing a decreasing trend. This is just a level of how true, basically the whether they think this is true. So, and you see that they're able to detect that the items we showed them are not true. And so in closing, and after this, we're gonna try to play the game, and hopefully you can give us some feedback during the Q&A. So we know that our game increases perceived threat, level of skepticism, caution, and even improves ability to accurately detect fake news. And because of this, these findings, we're confident in rolling out the game to the public. We've shown it, exhibited it to even older participants with the help of the National Library Board. We've shown this in various schools and universities. So hopefully there'll be more people who can play the game. But it's a work in progress. We're still trying to improve it. Our next steps would be to even get more people, especially young people, to try our game. We also want to update the game. What we want the game to be is also to become like a repository of claims that have been fact checked, so that of course people can go to fact checking sites, but we know that children rarely go to fact checking sites. So if we can link them to these resources after playing the game, I think that'll be good. But we also want a mobile app version of the game. Currently, the game can only be played on a desktop or a laptop because you still need to use your arrow keys or your WASD keys. So the next step would be to create a more mobile friendly version of the game. And finally, for me, my own vision is to create a version of the game that moves from just a single player to a group game. I believe that fake news as an issue is a very social problem. In studies we have done, we know that people verify through their social networks, and so the interventions I think that we design should target not individual participants, but groups or networks, right? And so we're trying to think of ways to move the game into a group setting. And we've been talking to other people. We're exploring creating a version of the game within a medical misinformation context. So I work with a student who's actually in touch with one of the hospitals here in Singapore to do just that. I presented this game in a conference in Spain, and we have one interested research group from Portugal who is proposing for us to create a version of the game in Portuguese. So I think that would also be quite cool. So that's what I have to share today. So I think what we're going to do now is Trina is going to try to play the game. I'll try to navigate her way into the game. So, and you can also try this at home if you go to fakenewsdetective.com. That's fakenewsdetective.com. You will see something like this. You can choose your player. These characters are actually from the Singapore's National Library Board's Sure initiative. So if you can choose a player here, and if you click next, it will take you to the game. So there's also like some descriptions, and um, again, there's also like a narrative that you can. There's a storyline that would hopefully would make it more fun and engaging for a player. So you can click next. It would take you to the game. So there are 3 levels to the game. Let's try level 1. We click enter. So again, this is still, you need to use space bars and arrow keys. So there's a narrative. We're telling our players that there's a fake news. So you just keep on clicking on the space bar. There will be some narrative there. So the storyline is that there's a mastermind behind the spread of fake news. And then you, the player, you are a spy. So you need to infiltrate the headquarters and catch the mastermind. So there'll be some tasks along the way. You have a disguise, you'll be doing your investigation. So and then you will now be entering the headquarters where fake news is being produced. So the goal here is to catch the mastermind across those 3 different levels. So if you continue clicking, it will take you into the lobby, I guess. So the goal here is you are going to find the mastermind or the boss. But then there are doors you need to open. There are activities you need to do. There are tasks that you need to complete to be able to navigate your way into this headquarters. So there are keys that you need to find, etc. So then when you finally are able to enter the room, then you will have to use your arrow keys to walk through this. So one more click onto the space bar, and I think we are ready to start. Yes. Okay. So so you'll be walking. Just go. You can walk straight. If you turn left, for example, right? If you go near certain things, you will see a question mark like this. If you click on your arrow keys or on your cursor, then it would give you some tasks to complete. So, for example, in this one, there are stories saved in the computer. Then this is you need to be able to detect which one is fake or real. Let's try to maybe do a few of these. So, okay, so identify whether the news are fake or real. If you click start, it would show you things like this. So some of our players would just, based on what they read, and this is what a lot of people do on social media, they would just make their decision fake or real. But we also include links. So if you want to look at the original version of this claim, that would open a window for you to do that. But maybe Trina, you want to just guess based on this if this is fake or real? Okay, so Trina got it correct. So and then in when we explain the answer, so if people get this incorrect, they would also see an explanation. And if you can see in the explanation, there's also a link that takes people into the fact check, one of the articles that fact check this claim. So if people want to read that, they can do so, or they can proceed to the next question. So for the small task, we usually expose them to 3 of 3 items that they have to detect whether fake or real. And then when they clear each level, there's also more of that. But then there are also different tasks that you need to do. Okay, so this one is quite long. So some players would go to the full article. Others would guess based on just the grammar or the writing or how plausible the claim is. When I tried this game, I have my students get examples from online. And then we are also like real news stories that are included in the game, and I asked them to really get examples of real stories that may be possibly fake. Like there was one story I remember about a street covered in chocolate because of a truck accident. which I thought was not very plausible. So I thought it was fake, but apparently it was real. So the items we're showing are a mix of real and fake news stories. So that's the game. I hope you get to try it. Um, and these are 3 levels that you need to clear. I'm very proud of the storyline. You know, there's also like a twist in the end, and so yeah, hope you get to try it. You can go to fakenewsdetective.com to play it, and let us know if you have suggestions on what we can improve with the game. So I think I will end my sharing with that, and see whether there are any suggestions or comments from you.
Thank you so much, Edson. So basically, there are a few questions, and I'll go to the first one. Do
Mhm.
you think the sample size was sizable enough to understand the audience group? If you could redo the study, what are the parameters or process that you would have improved on for better results?
It's a good question. For the college students, we are confident that we have sufficient sample size to detect small to medium size effects. So we ran a power analysis, and we know that that sample size is sufficient. If you notice in the secondary and JC students, we only had a treatment group. We did not have a control group. And the reason for that is it's more difficult for us to recruit participants from a younger demographic, because if we go to schools, we will need to coordinate with the school administration, with the Ministry of Education. So that demographic was challenging for us. I would say the sample size for the treatment group was sufficient, but the thing with the JC students, we didn't have a, and the secondary school students, we didn't have a control group. So if I were going to redo this study, we're still actually continuing testing the game, I would hopefully I can get more younger players to try the game, so that I can have a truly a control group for the younger demographic.
That's good to know. And basically, I think I see the same type of movements all over. It's good to understand that Singapore also has that, Malaysia does as well. And the second question is, when designing the studies, how do you choose the topic in the news for the game, or is it by random? And in relation to that, do the topics actually matter?
Very interesting question. I from the research that we do, I believe that the topics would matter. And if people are interested in a particular topic, they tend to be more careful in assessing it if there's high relevance. If the claim is close or mirrors what they already believe in, they're also more likely to think that it's true. Um, in selecting the items, we were very careful because our target group is secondary school students. So we did not include, very mature, gory, or maybe too sensitive items, too sensitive for a young demographic. So we did not focus on a specific topic, but we made sure that we're not unnecessarily exposing children to claims that may be too much for them to handle.
No, that's good to know. And actually, in relation to that, for your study, you decided on going forth with an online game, and I'm understanding as well in Malaysia there are also groups working on card-based games.
Yes.
In relation to that, do you think about whether the different mediums of play and whether it matters to approach a serious subject like this?
Mhm. Yeah, the card game is one thing that I'm very interested in, just because I've tried playing card games before and I thought it's fun. It's just that for us, when we embarked on this project, we were focused on a very specific demographic, secondary school students. We thought that just with the online access we have in Singapore, that it's a very straightforward intervention. There are plans in our research team to develop something for the elderly as well, because we know they're also an important demographic to discuss this issue with. And for that demographic, we might need to explore different types of formats of games, because I think, yeah, I'm not very sure whether this particular game that we develop would actually would actually work for that demographic. So maybe card games would be another way to go for a different demographic, and I'd be very interested to know what the experience is like in countries where people have rolled this out, like in Malaysia.
Oh, well, it's in the process, and they are trying to put it through like a few, like translating it to a few different languages. If you're
Yeah.
interested, I'll keep in touch on that. And the next question is, it seems that gamification is the way to prevent or inoculate the youth. Would you
Mm.
consider a similar approach with adults,
Mm.
whether it may have similar results?
I know that in other countries they've also developed games that are targeted for young adults. I know that I think there are researchers in Australia, for example, who came up with this game Bad Uncle, to explain into the stereotypes that it's your uncles and aunties that are usually sharing these items. Although I would say that's uh, I think that's not a very fair stereotype. You know, it may be true anecdotally for some of us, but I can see how gamification might work for young adults who are already well versed with computer games. You know, but I think designing it, how do you make it fun? You know, even with serious games, people have expectations of what a computer or a mobile game would be like. So that's something that we were very conscious about when we were creating this game, in that we don't want it to just be educational because it might bore or turn off players. So we also want, if you note the graphics that we use, for example, they're very, I would say it's something that you would see in any other computer game.
Okay. So far, that's it for the incoming questions. And I know before we end or anything, I was just wondering if there's anything else you might want to add, just to end the talk.
Yep. So I hope those who are able to join us this afternoon can try the game. Again, if you go to fakenewsdetective.com, please play with the game. And if you have thoughts, comments, suggestions, if you want to work with us on this, please let us know. You can email me at edson@ntu.edu.sg. That's Edson, my first name, edson@ntu.edu.sg. And we would love to have some discussions with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. And basically, just before we end the session, I'd just like to highlight next month's talk, which will be on August 10th, which will be given by the Arab Reporters for Investigative Journalism, ARIJ, which will be on the topic of AI strategy, the AI strategy guidebook that they build up to help small, medium-sized newsrooms with adopting AI in its operations, which includes fact-checking organizations. And yeah, stay tuned and come back to this. I think to this page, or also to the YouTube channel for
Mhm.
that particular talk. But thank you so much for your talk today, Professor Essen, and look forward to seeing more from the game and more of the other experiments coming forth after
Thanks,
this.
Chingy. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.